there's been points over the last couple of years where I really, really didn't think I would ever feel joy or happiness again. I felt like grief for my old life was just so all-consuming that. Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of Recovery and the Rest with myself, Ellen, and my pal Mandy.
Hello.
Hello. Summer holidays here in France, and Mandy, you were off at Latitude last weekend. How did that go?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Three panels. Saturday rained, so that was a bit unfortunate because that's usually the busiest, like, Are You Sober Curious one. Still was about 15 people, bless them, that sat there in the pouring rain to listen. Um, yeah, I think I talked to my therapist about it before I went around kind of boundary setting, making sure I put my kind of health first and stuff. So I'd had a tent put up for me. The mattress was old and kind of didn't last the night. So Thursday night, so I didn't sleep very well. And then they replaced it with another mattress on Friday. That one went down as well, so didn't sleep barely at all Friday night. So took some drastic action and asked if I could pull up my okay. If you're watching online, I just had to straighten my glasses because they were looking very weird. We're also wearing the same clothes. So
In
uh,
uniform,
we
ironically,
are white shirts and baggy barley trousers.
body pants, yeah.
And so yeah, I took drastic action on Saturday and messaged my friend who's one of the organisers. She sorted me out with a room. So I slept off site on Saturday night and then we went for a curry with another friend, which was really
Nice.
nice. And then Sunday was back on site and yeah, I was there with both my brothers. So I was like battling my inner like people pleaser, like on Saturday that I'd set this boundary and I was going to stay off site. And then I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I'm going to miss out. And are they annoyed? And like, I invited them um, but I actually just sort of told them that. And they were like, oh, no, no, it's fine. Um, yeah, we just had some quite good sort of chats and yeah, it was good. I think the thing that I always forget is it's actually kind of my adrenaline holds me through when I'm at an event.
Yeah.
It's when I get back, that's when I crash. So like yesterday and today, I thought like I was really, really tired yesterday and had to do quite a lot of driving and then got back and like took a 3 hour nap. So I slept from like 4 till whatever, 3 hours later, 7 or something.
Yeah.
Um, and then had a bit of food and then was asleep again at 10. So
Yeah, I see. Interesting hearing you speak about like that fear of missing out with your brothers and just um we both have two older brothers and I just remember that from like being a teenager of wanting to stay up all the time with my brothers and that fear of missing out and yeah, the people pleasing role as the only daughter within that kind of
yeah.
scenario too. It's interesting dynamics.
Yeah. And my brothers shared a room growing up because we didn't have a lot of money. So they were always like the two of them together and then
Yeah.
me. And yeah, being the only girl and the youngest for sure, I've always like seeked their approval a lot and wanted to be included and stuff. But yeah, I'm quite fortunate. One of my brothers doesn't drink now, so that kind of helped sort of equal the dynamic because they have their kind of boy stuff together, and
Yeah.
then we had our kind of sober stuff together. So because threes are quite an awkward
Yeah.
number, so that kind of yeah, that helped, I think. Yeah, it was good. How's summer for you so far?
Yeah, it's good. No, it is good actually. Within our group, we reflect. Oh, I'd asked them to reflect back on the last year and how things had changed, and so I was trying to do the same for me and thinking back to last year. And there's been points over the last couple of years where I really, really didn't think I would ever feel joy or happiness again. I felt like grief for my old life was just so all-consuming that. I would never ever find room for joy. And then here I am this summer, like, oh, I'm able to really enjoy my peace, which I seem to really, really be protecting with everything of like, um, yeah, and recognizing that I like to step into drama or, um, and that I can choose to step out of it a lot and shifting some dynamics to protect my peace and to feel as much joy as possible. So, um, yeah, it's been a nice, chilled summer, and hopefully the weather's going to pick up again and have a few more chilled weeks before the kids go back to school. But it is interesting how we all crave that routine. We like the rest, but and that chance to recover, but we do thrive in the structure. But saying that, today actually I've been for a walk with my friends. I did some kettlebell working out. I did some like crazy dancing in between each set, and I just was like, ah, oh, I'm truly happy today. Like I'm in my body, and like my mind and body feel connected. I feel really good. I was like, if it was my perfect day, this morning's been it so far. So,
And then you got to talk to me.
and then I get to talk to you too.
Wow, the icing on the cake. Oh, well, I'm happy for you. I love that. And yeah, protecting your peace is such an interesting, like, I think that's a real growth area. I think I've seen in like sort of later sobriety recovery, um, like a lesser tolerance to drama, but also just an enjoyment in yeah the quiet and simple really.
Yeah,
Um, you know, definitely I could definitely like never do a festival again. It wouldn't, do you know what I mean? It wouldn't bother me. Like it was great and all that, but yeah, I really enjoyed when we left site and went for a curry, and it was just the three of us, and they're like sober friends as well, you know.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just it's a lot. I mean, it was nice to be with. It's nice when people kind of push you out of your comfort zone because I think I could very easily not do a lot. And my
Yeah,
brother kind of pushed me to see new music and do stuff. I do think we've talked about it before. I have a very fine line between like chilling and sort of being in free state.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I love that. Well, you know, that you just yeah, just had a nice day, sort of
No,
doing the.
actually, like put my phone down and sat on the terrace in the sunshine and read my book, and that I always think I'm not very creative, which is almost like a missing part of my sobriety somehow. And I talk a lot about like, the whole life grid and trying to build this whole life, a fulfilled life. Um, and sometimes creativity is one of those ones that's not there for me. But actually, when I read, especially when I'm reading all the books around our recovery and our learning, it gets me all like excited for things again. The learning is really creative for me. I love it.
That's interesting, isn't it? It's like how do we frame creativity? Like, what does it actually mean?
Yeah,
And yeah, I'd never thought about reading as a creative pursuit, but it totally is.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I that's my plan after this is to I'm reading two books actually. I'm reading because I don't know if you do this, but whenever I go back to England, I like get succumb to the buy one get one half free WH Smith's offer. It's my little pleasure in the airport,
Yeah.
and my brother had suggested a book called Meditation for Mortals. I'm
Okay.
reading that, which is like a daily reading for a month. Um, and I'm also reading a Bob Mortimer novel, which is quite fun.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it
Um,
is. Well, with the invention of like the smartphones and things and the way that our brains moved, I noticed that I'm definitely not the only one in this that really struggle with the concentration of reading. Like, I can sometimes justify reading the kind of the workbooks, right? The
mhm.
more developmental, but I struggle reading fiction books. But one of my friends was like, "Why are you picking up that shit? Pick up a novel." And she was like, "It's like story time for a child, right?
Mm.
Escape from the world." It's like, oh, I love that. I do really love that idea. So I've been trying to read more like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I always have a thinky book and a novel on the go. I
Yeah,
can't read thinky books when I go to bed. I have to read some kind of, yeah,
story time.
story
I love
time.
story time.
Yeah. But yeah, I have to put my phone away for sure.
Yeah.
Like, dagnammit the phone. Someone asked me the other day about Instagram and I'd completely forgotten about it. Isn't that
How,
funny?
how are you doing with that?
Well, fine. I've completely forgotten about it. I mean,
You
someone
just,
was just like, "How are you doing?" It's, I'm so impressed you've done that. And I was
yeah,
like, "Oh yeah, like it's just mad how kind of intrusive something can be in your life, and then you can just take it out, and then just it have no relevance at all." The only
yeah,
annoying thing is when people send me stuff, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm not on Instagram anymore."
yeah.
Um, I get my children to like just screen record sometimes if they really want to show me something. But other than that, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how we fight to hold on to something. We feel it has some kind of value, and then when it goes, it's like, oh, that was really actually completely meaningless in my life.
Yeah. I mean, just the mindset around these things is just really incredible. I was telling you before, I was just on a alcohol change liver and nutrition course this morning, which was just unbelievable at quite how damaging alcohol is to our bodies, our microbiome, our nutrition. Like, even just the word malnutrition is such a shocking word. And the fact that essentially, yeah, by drinking, we are malnourished is,
Yeah,
but the cultural and even the nutritionist that was running the training was talking about that the cultural how to talk about that in a way that is accessible with all the cultural connotations that surround alcohol or all different cultures too, like if you're talking to a South Asian culture, if you're talking to a you know Black Jamaican background, whatever, every kind of culture has its own relationship to this substance, which is just so unbelievably damaging for us. I
yeah.
mean, it's just crazy.
And we are talking about the pushback from people, like not
Yeah.
to hear that. I find this, well, I find it interesting because this is what really led me to my sobriety, right? Was doing so much reading around nutrition and being so dedicated to making sure that I nourished myself and my family in a certain way. Like, no, we're not going to eat these. We're going to fill up on these. Like, and really being passionate and working on that mindset about I don't want to eat this because of the impact it will have on me physiologically, da, 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 and still protecting alcohol. Like, still, like, but there's a place for alcohol. And then when I started to read the information around that, and I would always refer people back to the World Health Organization bump about alcohol. That's really, really interesting to me, just the impact it has on us physiologically, psychologically, and socially, right, and
Mm.
economically. But when I started to read it as a nutritionist, as a trained nutritionist, we used to talk about like, oh, well, have clear spirits and clear mixers. I'm just like, how could I ever recommended like as a physiologist, it's poison. So
Yeah.
when I started to do the reading, just very pragmatically taking all the emotion out of it, it's this doesn't make sense. There's no room for this in my diet.
Yeah, I mean, and I always remember that with kind of, with all kind of health sort of recipe books or whatever,
Hmm.
that it would always be there in some way. I remember one of the things I liked about the Whole 30 was like it's one of the first things where it's just like, and you take out this
Yeah.
substance as well.
I'm sure there used to be a white wine diet, didn't there? I
Oh
seem to
God.
remember like how times have changed, and that's what we just hope that things move. Um, but it does. We're so want to fight to keep hold of something. Um,
I mean, the general consensus this morning, well, actually, this is my opinion that I put into the group was that I think it's it's quite a soft kind of awareness route, like kind of the anxiety conversation, which has helped so much in people being able to talk about, the links between alcohol and anxiety, and that being kind of a soft route to talk about
yeah,
alcohol harm. It seems like potentially it could be a soft route too, to be talking about nutrition and gut health and things like that, that so many people are now kind of getting an awareness, and then talk about alcohol harm through that. But saying that, I mean, they're all such privileged conversations. There's like money, environment, so many things factor into the way that we eat, the way that we view food. And
yeah,
anyway, so we were going to talk a little bit about how we've approached talking about alcohol and drugs with our kids.
yeah, yeah. This is probably more interesting now that we're both at this stage of our sobriety because we both have teenagers at this stage, right? Like when we stopped
Mm-hmm.
drinking, they were, what were yours, like 10 and 12, something like that?
10 and 9, I think.
10 and
10, yeah.
9. Yeah, mine were, I suppose Anais was, yeah, 10, 11, 11, 9, and 7, something like that. But now certainly they're teenagers. It's interesting to reflect back. But my eldest has just got a job in a bar
Mm.
here. So, and she's 17. And so when I reflect back to when I was 17 and I too worked in a bar, which I loved. I love that work from just a social point of view, a community point of view. Um, and I was 17 in the UK and I met my husband working there. So at 17. So it's interesting now because I don't think she's really dabbled in drinking. But I remember when I worked in the bar staff from a different pub would come in and ask me to serve them, and I'd been drinking in the other pub for about 3 years. And I remember
Mm.
I told them, I'm sorry, I'm not old enough to serve you. And they were like, what? It's like, yeah, still not old enough.
What were you doing in the bar then? Were you like washing up? You couldn't
I was
serve at
collecting glasses and like
17.5.
bottling up. It was the best, yeah, the best
Yeah.
time ever. But I don't know. What about you? Your kids are a bit older than mine. So what do you think their kind of perception on alcohol is, and how open are you with your kids about the journey that you've had?
I mean, very open. I mean, obviously, I used to be on Instagram a lot, and I used to share very openly on Instagram. So when they started getting social media at like 13, I had to kind of sit them down and have a chat, not just about, alcohol, but about trauma and all sorts of things that they might read. Um, yeah, I was just thinking about that I used to work in a pub too when I think I started when I was 16 and worked in the back and then worked behind the bar from the age of 18.
Mm.
Um, and I always remember I mean, we've been drinking in a pub for, yeah, good 3 years when we got our A-level results and we were like, "Oh, just got our A-level results, even though we've been drinking here for
Yeah.
years and years. But Well, I think it's shifted quite a lot, and I don't know if this is. Um, well, I had a conversation. I had an old friend I hadn't seen for a very long time when I went back to Stroud recently. Um, I had a conversation with him about kind of how I feel about alcohol, and I sort of said, look, I think initially I was incredibly anti-alcohol because I had to be, right. I had to like make it this Um, yeah, there's very kind of, very harmful, very big, very ugly,
Yeah.
dangerous thing because I didn't want to do it again. And I think now, like, I can sit with both sides, that like, just because it was a problem for me and it is addictive, and it's addictive from the first drink because it caused me a lot of harm, doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be the same for everybody else. Um, I did a training once which was quite useful on young people and drugs, and they said, essentially the majority of people who do drugs, don't go on to become, have addictions. Like, people use it recreationally and then grow up and stop.
Hmm.
That was quite enlightening to me because I'd never like I I was really in that black and white sort of thing and very anxious with my kids and everything. Um, so I think it's quite good that I've kind of had that progression as they've grown up to this point. So I think when they were younger, they definitely had quite a strong kind of anti-alcohol message. Um, and now, well, they're going to do what they're going to do, basically. Um, my kind of stance on it is I talk to them a lot about their brain.
Hmm.
So I'm always saying like, well, I prefer you not to do stuff because your brain's still growing. I know I can't stop you, but you know, your brain is still growing until you're like 25. So the later you can be, the better. Um, and I've talked to them about the difference between kind of drink drinking with food in a social setting and drinking to get drunk, um, and mainly sort of talked around what are the signs of if it does become a problem. So like, I'm like, look, okay, there is kind of addiction in your both sides of your families potentially, whether it's claimed or not. um there is neurodiversity as well. Like, there's added risk, let's say. So, what if you were to do that sort of behavior, what are your rules around it? And so I tried to get them to sort of have some specific rules around how much, when, how often.
Yeah.
Um, and sort of said, well, look, if those rules change, that's an indicator that something's changed. So that's what's to be mindful of.
Yeah.
So we're just like, look, is it okay if I kind of check in with you on those rules every so often? And that's kind of how we've left it, really. So it's like, look, you're going to do what you're going to do. I mean, unfortunately, drugs are so dangerous because you don't know what's in them, and they're so, mixed with stuff. Obviously, if you're smoking weed, then there's the tobacco risk. There's those sort of, I don't, I do think alcohol is one of the most dangerous
Yep.
drugs, and I've made that very clear to them. But the other side is that you don't know, unfortunately, what's in other, drugs, and they're illegal, which um. But yeah, I've basically like tried to be like, look, these are the risks. You're going to do what you want. Have a plan, and if that plan changes, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then,
How do you manage with the fact that you're a coach and their mum? Like,
mm,
it's an interesting dynamic, isn't it, of that relationship with our kids, of not overstepping, like the not coaching them but parenting them, which there's an overlap there as well, right? Even when we're coaching to a certain amount of uh, there is a certain amount of kind of setting those boundaries, caring about people, and also giving them autonomy in their decisions.
mm. Um, Well, I think when your kids are 18, you're not parenting anymore. Like they're a separate adult that happens to live under your roof. So like there's a shift in kind of the way that I suppose we talk about, like there's the boundaries around it being my house, right?
Yeah.
Which is boundaries for me in my own space. But in terms of having any sort of control over their behavior, I mean, even before 18, really, but
Yeah.
there's nothing I can do. So, um, you know, if I were to find paraphernalia or whatever, or bottles, or, I would confiscate it because it's in my house and that's
Yeah.
my space. Um, but I kind of feel like the most important thing is to keep an open dialogue about it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, who knows, dude? Who knows?
Yeah. It's interesting listening to you because I feel mine's like almost the other way around, is that when I gave up alcohol, I didn't put it in the kind of the black and white. This was
Mm.
like, this is my decision for my health. Now that I've kind of explored what it looks like to remove alcohol and see the impact it's had on me health wise and like yeah, for certain markers and for my sleep and then actually how I interacted with my kids, it just made sense for me to carry on. But I was almost wanting to make sure that everybody else around me still like it's fine, you drink if you want to drink. I'm this is my decision. I completely understand why you drink, which I still understand. Um, but I've probably moved more over to the camp of really cementing that idea that I don't like alcohol. And I don't like what it does to us on so many different levels, not just personally, but for families and for society, that it cements my decision for me, but also with the kids, we've got that double-sided thing where I gave up my health and but I still want to continue to do the work to ensure that I know why I gave up and I continue in my sobriety. And we've also had addiction issues within the house to self-medicate for mental health reasons. So we do have that kind of open dialogue. And it's interesting. Most people that come to my house are sober, right? Like, and we talk so openly about it that the kids are just around. So it's something as they've been aware, they've just had this awareness that, yeah, most of my mates don't drink. There's reasons that they don't drink.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like that's more powerful than anything else, really.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, that was one of the motivators for stopping for me was just to show them another way because I had this like, weird kind of fucked up idea that like I should learn to moderate and I should, be able to keep alcohol in my life because it would set a good example for the kids,
Yeah.
which is just like my addiction talking.
Yeah.
But actually, like, you know, them having a parent that doesn't drink and having, yeah, same, like lots of friends that don't drink and being around that, it's normalized that choice too. So it's not like
Yeah.
being I wouldn't say I'm pro alcohol. I mean, and they know that I don't like being around drunk people, all of those things, but it's almost like being neutral about it.
Hmm.
Um, so that they can not have to hide anything from me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And so it's like the conversations I wish that somebody had had with me as a teenager, right? Like I know as a teenager, their brains aren't fully developed. They're not in that kind of that same rational place necessarily. However, just planting that seed of, as you say, what what do you want your relationship with alcohol to look like? What does safe drinking look like to you? What does it look like if it's unsafe?
Yeah.
Um, I
Like
think
I like my son went to, he went to Francophonie, which is a French music festival, and it went on quite late, and it was big, the first thing he'd ever done like that on his own. He's 17, and I said, was it rough? And he wasn't like, yeah, it was quite rough at times actually. And I sort of said, oh, it's interesting to think how much less safe that would have been if you'd been drinking. So it's almost like those little conversations. And he was like, oh yeah, true, and like, and how you can take care of your friends, so I
yeah,
think, but I really think it depends on the kid. Like I can have such different conversations with him than I can with my daughter just because of the people they are. Um, she'd had a few drinks at uni and didn't tell me because she was worried that I'd be, angry.
yeah.
So it depends on many different things. But yeah, it's how have things been with your kids?
Yeah, it is. My eldest, when people will say to her, "Oh, have you, do you want a drink?" Because if we go out, she does get offered because she's not 18, but she's 17 and a half, and I would definitely have been drinking at that point.
Yeah.
Uh, and she's like, "Oh, no, no." And people will say, "Well, have you had a drink?" And she's like, "Oh, no, mum would kill me," which I always kind of laugh. My relationship with alcohol is my relationship with
Yeah.
alcohol. It's the same. I'm aware that my children are going to have a different relationship, and that's not something I have control over or want control over, to be honest. Um, and yeah, I absolutely wouldn't kill her. It's a case of I hope that they are informed more than anything. That, as I said, going back to those conversations, I wish that I had more information about the impact of alcohol on me, and certainly on their dad. So yeah, and will kind of say that, oh no, she'd kill me, but that's not true. Um,
Well, I mean, all the studies point to that there is a very um, people are very misled in the fact that thinking that, that being permissive around alcohol means that children will have, a less problematic relationship. That all the studies show that actually having a hard line, and even if it does mean that they go behind your back, is actually better than being permissive around it, which I find really interesting.
But
Um,
yeah, I don't know what your parents were like, but mine certainly. I was like wine with water at the dinner table, that whole continental Europe. If you raise children like this, they won't have an
yeah,
issue. And that is actually how I started raising my kids as well, right? Like they were, I can't, when I say it now, I'm just like, what the was I thinking? I was giving them this poison, but from age 4 or 5, like tiny bit of wine in your water, and now I know different. A, the poison, and B, just I was setting these neural pathways for them that you sit down to dinner, you have a glass of wine, you
mm,
get in from work, you have a gin and tonic. They might have a tonic water, but we would kind of say to them, "Oh yeah, cheers," and we'd all do that
yeah,
and everyone
put it in the little
laugh.
champagne glass or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah,
And now I'm just like, what was I thinking? Um, and it is interesting. Oliver, for a long time, because he's my youngest, he didn't realize that I was sober. And I remember him saying when he was about 8 or 9, like, "Oh yeah, you got mummy's medicine." I don't even know where he picked that up from. I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, that's your wine, isn't it?" I was like, "No, Oliver, I don't." The girls were like, "Huh?"
mm.
Um, Mum doesn't drink. And he was like, "Well, I don't know what that means." So having that conversation with him. But yeah, I don't know that when they're young, they're very in the one camp, right? Of no, I won't drink. I don't see the point. But it's outside influences and them making up their own mind and trial and error going forward. I think it's sometimes really lovely speaking to younger people who say, "Oh, I don't drink. I had a couple of drinks and I just didn't like it, so I never went back to it." And they haven't pushed through that and persevered because so often Like, no, of course we didn't like it. It's actually, it doesn't taste nice. It doesn't make
Yeah.
me feel nice. And I was sick, and yet I pushed through that.
Yeah, like smoking, isn't it? It's like
Yeah.
absolutely disgusting. But you
Yeah.
push on through because it's
Yeah.
cool.
It's totally cool until it's
Yeah,
not.
until it's
Um,
not.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean we'll have to see how it unfolds, right? I mean, I think they are growing up with a different dialogue. I do think it was really dependent on their friends, dependent on where you're living. Like I think, well, actually, it was one of the reasons why I wanted to move to France, um, just to be a little bit out of that culture. Because yeah, it's just like little things when you go to the pub and be with friends or whatever, and be like, I can remember my daughter being like, I don't have any ice, and someone just like pulling ice out of their wine glass and like popping it in her juice, and it's like, or going to like, I remember us going to, it sounds really like judgmental, I don't mean it at all, it's just cultural differences. Um, Going to a child's birthday party in a pub, and my daughter being like, why is there a birthday party in a bar, mummy? And I'd never even thought about it. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
yeah,
And being at the festival, like there was a few times where I was just like, I don't, this doesn't feel okay, because you just got these little kids with their, all wrapped up with their headphones on, and everyone's just pissed.
yeah. And well, it is interesting because when we look back at my own journey, I never even questioned the journey with alcohol, right? It was just modeled of this is what adults do. So our kids growing up with somebody who, yeah, they've seen go, oh, actually, this doesn't serve me. I no longer do it. I didn't know anyone that was sober, I don't think. I don't didn't know any adult that didn't drink when I was growing up.
No.
Um, and it's quite, my girls have just been back to the UK, and they took the ferry, and the ferry got into port at like 9:30 on a Friday night, and they sent me a video. They were like, they stayed in a hotel in Portsmouth, and they were like, Mum, there is drunk people everywhere. I was like, yes, welcome to my old world. Like,
Yeah.
that's how there was almost some nostalgia from me because I could hear people in the background. To them, it's completely alien of that, people on the streets, the pubs.
It
Yeah,
is pretty surprising. Like I was in London last week or whatever, and yeah, it came into Liverpool Street, and you come out, and there's just like people everywhere drinking. Oh
yeah,
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 uh,
yeah. We're so lucky to be here and for the kids to be growing up here, right?
yeah. I mean, it certainly doesn't mean our like France doesn't have its alcohol problems for
Yeah,
sure. Um, it looks different. And as you say, there's loads of beautiful things about that.
yeah.
Social. It's just it almost is just like it's a real shame because like British people are brilliant and they just don't need it.
Well, yeah,
Um,
and it is a hub of the community quite often,
yeah,
like the church and the pub. When you look at villages, and the church part has kind of the numbers are dying, and the pubs, there's so many pubs closing, but especially for men and men's mental health, like it's it is a real community, and I used to love that part of it, and it was such a strong association with the alcohol that was what made it fun, but actually it was going in even on my own as a 17, 18-year-old and being like, all right, how are you doing? And sitting down and connecting with people.
doing the crossword.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like doing all kinds of playing pool. And that is actually what was the most fun because the alcohol part did generally make me a bit of a knob and sick.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Well,
and so,
it disconnects you. I mean, that's what I saw at the festival. It's like you guys are not actually together. It's like it's almost like people are side by side, but they're not really together because it's like there'll be lists like we went to see Basement Jacks, which was really fun, really weird in points. It was like, oh yeah, tune, and then it was like, this is not that great. It was a real mixed bunch, and they all looked really old, which was a little depressing. But you'd see people and they'd be like, way, and then the person next to them would be like, like it was just all a little bit out of kilter, do you know what I mean? And like they'd be like, yeah, kind of, but they weren't really like seeing each other, you know?
Yeah.
It was like life's in a bit of a blur. It's really interesting to observe. Um, and also thinking like I would probably not remember any of this because I just would black out, you know, and
Yeah.
how dangerous that is and how scary, like seeing a few people just like, you know, and they're just like, oh, sort of.
Yeah.
Anyway, I see the time. We should probably wrap up.
Yeah,
Um,
I just there was one thing I wanted to say about the kids with the drinking, especially for my kids, was the whole I read something yesterday saying like learning how to regulate our nervous system not only, makes for happier people, but it really does keep us away from things like addiction. Um, and that I think is the biggest thing that I try to lean towards for my kids is that learning how to regulate and what feels safe so that they don't need to escape from life with alcohol. So that would
mm,
be my biggest kind of, I don't know, promise to them is to try and help them with that.
oh, I love that. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for the nice chat, and
Yeah.
we'll see you next week. Have a good week. Take care. Bye bye.
Right.